Hello, everyone, and welcome. It is Friday. It is a holiday weekend, Memorial Day. And I want to thank you again for tuning in, or you say tuning in? That's a radio term, isn't it? I guess that kind of shows my age. But I want to thank you for joining us with Break Time with Pastor V. And I am glad to be here. It's a little different of setting today, but it's all good. God works everything out for his glory. And I also want to thank all of those, hey, Cousin Greg, who came out to help us on Wednesday to feed the people in the community. And you may have seen a picture that I posted. We had a group of people, our church and a sister church that meets in our building, Iglesia Missionary Ebenezer. So Ebenezer Missionary Church in Spanish, but they are there. They worship with us, and they came together with us, and we were able to serve 100 families with groceries. And it's all because of the generosity of other people that God has allowed us to be generous. And you saw me, I may have written, the the doors are closed, but the church is still open. And we're so thankful for that you can't stop the church from doing what it's called to do, even though there are those who are forcibly going to worship together this Sunday or May 31st. And I'm going to leave that alone for now. But you can't stop the church. It is, committed to doing what God's called it to do. When the doors are closed, the Spirit of God still finds other avenues. And so that's all good. But again, thanks for joining us on Break Time with Pastor V. Make sure you say hello and let us know where you're worshiping us from. And so I kind of got this message because the other day as I was leaving the church after we were feeding the people, and I got ready to go out, and I stepped down, opened the door, and there was a young brother there. And he said, "Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry." He was sitting there on the steps drinking a beer. And so he got up and he left because he saw me. And then I had to come back to the church after I got in the car because I forgot something. So when I pulled up to the curb, he had come back. And when he saw me, he got up again and he left. And so I thought, that, gosh, he's moving because he sees me. And really, I'm not the issue. I'm not the challenge. But what about God? And I thought about not just him, but how often we are, how so often we do wrong, or we put ourselves in a position of not wanting others to see us, or at least certain others to see us. But but what about God? He's always there, right? And the flip side is not just when we're doing something bad, but often when we're doing things good, we want certain others to see us, or we want to project a certain image, and we find ourselves performing or acting to build our own image. And so today I want to talk about an audience of one. Hey, Bishop Tolbert, I see you there in North Carolina. Thanks for joining us. But Pat, I see you. So I want to talk really quickly about what I call an audience of one from Psalms 139. And here's what I believe that God wants you to know. One is that you are good enough. And you know what? Two, God wants us to know that he's the only one that we should strive to please. And so that's why in today's break time, I'm calling this an audience of one, being the number one. And so I also want to speak to the person who, after careful examination, you find that a lot of things that you do really are an effort to make yourself appear better, and not just to other people, but to yourself. And the reason is, the truth is that you don't accept who you are. So you find it easier to love and to accept other people, but not yourself. And why? Because you know your secrets. You know the hidden and the not so obvious faults. You know what goes on in your mind. And listen, many of your leaders and pastors and teachers and preachers, we struggle with this in this area. It's not necessarily a sign of weakness, and you're not alone, but it creates a need for affirmation. Now, don't get me wrong. We all want and we all need to be, appreciated and affirmed. But when affirmation becomes a driving force, it can so easily put you in a position of vulnerability and the possibility of being used and abused. And listen, not all affirmation seekers have negative experiences. Some accomplish great things, great feats. They receive esteemed awards and accolades of millions. But let's look here what David says in Psalms 139. We're going to look at the first few verses. In verse 1, he talks to us, Lord, you searched me. Lord, you know me. Now that right there blows my mind. I'm going to tell you why in a minute. He says, you know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out, my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, Lord, you know it completely. You know what I'm going to say. You hem me in from behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It's too lofty for me to understand. Let me ask you this. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this. If there was another you, but not you, but they were just like you, and you knew all the negative that you know, the not so nice things about them, you knew every one of their faults, you knew how they thought and what they would and they would not do. Here's the question. How close would you be to them? How deeply would you love them? How much would you trust them? Probably not much, right? And that's what David, he's tripping on. He says, God, listen, you know me and yet you love me. And that's what blows my mind. God, he knows everything about us. He knows what you're going to say. He knows how you're going to say it. Before you say it, he knows what you're going to do. He knows what you've done. He knows what you're doing now. He knows what you're going to do. And yet he loves you. He still has his hand upon you. And so this is really important for us to grasp, because like the brother who got up because I appeared, listen, the thing is God is always there and he knows where we are. David said in the next few verses, Lord, where can I go? And you're not there. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of dawn, if I settle on the sides of the sea. Here's verse 10. Even there, your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast. Listen, God wants you to know you. He says, even when we try to hide from God, verse 10 says, you will uphold me with your right hand. Listen, saints, God wants us to trust him. Not just for things, but to trust him with us. I'm going to let that one sink in. Not just with things, but trust him with us. Trust him with our hearts, our emotions, our past, our present. You see what will happen? This will bring us deliverance. The freedom to be who we are without mask. Wow. To be who we are without mask. To be who we are without mask. Without masking ourselves to ourselves. And certainly we can't mask ourselves from God. So remember, let's live an audience of one. There's freedom in you being you. And no matter where you are, David concluded, God, you know me and you still have your right hand upon me, meaning that God's still supporting. God delivers us by growing us to be what he wants us to be. So you may not be what you want to be, but you don't have to live in shame because God is working his will in you. And what this does, even in a stressful time like this, I believe that God allows us this period of time to really pensive, to see who we are, to see what makes us tick, and drive us to depend upon him so that we can have the joy of being ourselves in his presence. And one time the Lord spoke to me and he simply said, you are enough. You are enough. See, we mask who we are because we're simply trying to gain God's favor. You can't. Or anyone else's. You're enough who you are. God knows who you are, and you are enough for him to die for. So let's be real. Let's be real with God, and remember to live for an audience of one. Who cares who else is around? Who cares what other people think? I know we do, but we don't have to. At the end of the day, if we can say, Lord, I've pleased you, that's a good thing. Or Lord, hey, I've fallen, but here's my heart. Help me do better. Strengthen me. That's a good thing. So you can be you. You can be healed by being you in the presence of God. Have a blessed weekend. I'll see you on Sunday at Facebook Live, right here at the same place where you are right now. And again, thanks to all of you who contributed and made it possible for us to feed 100 families this Wednesday. So God bless you. Have a great weekend. Monday's a holiday, so I won't be here, all right? So Monday's a holiday, so we won't be here for Break Time with Pastor V. I will see you Sunday and then again on Tuesday. Bless you. Sunday at 11 a.m., Zion Temple. Have a great day. Thank you. Be you. And remember, we have an audience of one. That's the most important thing, so we can be ourselves with him. Bless you. Bless you. Bless you. Have a great weekend.